So today we had a couple releases I talked about in my upcoming releases of September. One of them was called Trench 11. So at midnight, as soon as it dropped, I went ahead and pressed play, but unfortunately by the time it was done, I needed to go to bed. So I couldn't get any reviews done on this. But I was kind of wrong, kind of right when I said that this was a World War II movie. And then I corrected myself thinking, well, maybe it's a World War I movie because there's trenches. It was a World War I movie. I'm just not really used to seeing World War I covered that much. But if you really, I've said this before, I think in that review, or that video, that if you want to see a fantastic World War II horror, or World War I horror movie, check out Death Watch with Andy Serkis, yes, Gollum himself. This is a really, really good film, man. I love it. Anyway, so let's get into the film itself. Before I get into spoilers, I just want to say that I enjoyed it. It's much... a lot of people are asking me, is this a zombie movie? No, not traditionally. Some of the villains in it have zombie-like features, qualities, stuff like that, but they aren't zombies per se. So I wouldn't say that. Another thing that was surprising to me is this film is very serious, has a lot of dialogue, not a ton of action, but I never found myself to be overwhelmingly bored or anything. There were moments where it was dragging a little bit, but I thought that the actors in this did all a pretty damn good job. And you can tell this had a really low budget, but they actually, I feel like, utilized it fairly well. I mean, I thought the movie looked really good. I thought that the gore was actually excellent when it was on screen. And I was really excited that it was all practical until one death in particular where they use CGI for like blood and gunshots and all that, which I felt like was so unnecessary because they have like heads exploding and they have all sorts of practical gore effects. And I almost have to wonder if this was added in post when some rig didn't go the right way, or they wanted to add an extra little thing here or there and they had like a little time. I don't know what happened with that. It just doesn't really fit the rest of the film. So it's jarring when it happens because usually you get one or the other and not really a blend of like really great practicals and then randomly thrown in shitty CGI, gunshots, blood. I hate CGI blood. It never looks real. I think this might be too slow for some people, that there won't be enough going on, that it takes itself too seriously, but I actually thought that was kind of its charm, that it is a serious horror movie, that it doesn't go for more of the slapsticky, goofy kind of thing, because a lot of these like German, I wanted to say Nazi, but the World War I wasn't the Nazis. But we had a lot of Nazi zombie movies that were comedic, and this is more of a take on World War I, Germany, and these zombie-like creatures. I'm not going to give it away right now until I get into my spoilers. But yeah, it is much slower, and I think the trailer sells it as this action-packed thrill ride, and it's not. But I did really like the characters, and I really liked the main guy here. Another thing I really enjoy about watching lower budget films like this, especially when they're well done and the acting is good, is I can lose myself so much more easily in these films because I don't recognize a single face. When I see Brad Pitt or Leonardo DiCaprio or whatever, even though I enjoy those guys, it's always them. So I'm always in a movie with them. When it's these guys, there are moments where I kind of lose myself in it more than I normally would with star-studded casts. The familiarity is gone, so it feels like I'm watching people that are in these predicaments as opposed to actors. But yeah, so it's got a Death Watch vibe to it. So I think that if you're a fan of this, you might want to check this one out. This is real slow too, yeah, it's got a similar feel. So if you're a fan of Death Watch, I'd check this out. But anyway, so let's get into the movie itself. Spoilers from here on. So yeah, this guy is a what do they call him? Like Trencher or whatever, this guy, and he has to go down in this hole to try to get some people, and he's down there, and man, like the bodies he's finding, like this one dude has the whole side of his face blown off. A lot of great gore throughout this. And then the tunnels caving in around him as the Germans hear this guy call out in pain, and then the whole thing starts collapsing around him, and somehow he still makes it out of there. The film is set in 1918. They mention Argonne Forest, which I'm a big Battlefield 1 player, which is set during World War I, and one of the maps that you play on all the time is Argonne Forest, and it's a map that I love, so every time it comes up, it's like, oh, Argonne Forest, and when they said it in here, I was just like, oh, you know, I like the attention to actual, because a lot of the stuff they were saying are events that were taking place during World War I, so they didn't just make shit up. They actually went and did some of their research and made a lot of the battles actually play into the timeline in which what they were doing and the events were, you know, affecting their decision making and what to do within their little thing. So technically, it's historical fiction, and just in a horror movie setting, which is cool. Jesus. And so they go down there, they find the guy, he's dating, like he's in love with this French girl, and they pull him out of there and they make him go to this mission. He's a Canadian, which you didn't see a lot of Canadians in that war. Wasn't even their war. But yeah, so he gets pulled out of there, and he is... They find this first German guy because they're trying to figure out, they're trying to pull this door open, which he's nailed shut. And the guy's like, no. And, you know, they go to like shoot him, and he's like, fine, fucking shoot me. I don't care. I don't want to see what's beyond that door again. I don't want to get infected. I don't want to do anything. So he just grabs the gun and puts it in his mouth, and the guy pulls the trigger, and boom, his whole head explodes. Great practical effect there. Hell yeah. That was incredible. Didn't shy away from it at all. Then we get to see this parasitic worm that is the the main threat of this. And the whole point of it was to try to infect a whole bunch of people, and it takes away all of their free thinking, basically. It goes into the frontal cortex, which is kind of what dictates your moods and your ability to make rational decisions, I suppose. And some people, and I like that that's kind of explained in here that, Jesus, that everyone reacts differently to it. They get these little parasitic worms that go up and sometimes most of the times they want to kill people, but other people just want to fuck. Some people want to, they all have different ways that they take it. It's not just anger. It's not like the rage virus. It's everyone takes the thing differently, but core primitive human behavior is violence and murder. That's kind of where we are in our most primitive state, and so that's what you revert back to. Most people would fall into that kind of mentality, and they'll be killing each other. But yeah, I love when they're checking him, and they see these little spaghetti-looking worms that are coming out, and they cut him open. Real Y incision. They cut him open. They separate. I think they just do a straight down, but they do the rib separator, and boom, all these freaking things are coming out. They're all surrounding his heart and everything, like heartworms for dogs. And then he sees some in the nose. Like one crawls into the nose, and the guy presses right here on the nose, and boom, they'll just fucking come out in droves. The way that looks is so gross and so creepy and so awesome. Whoever did the practical effects on that stuff, it looked incredible. So awesome. You have to see it if you haven't seen the movie and you're still listening. You have to see these parasitic worms and how they come out of the nose and how they come out of the body. They look like spaghetti noodles. In fact, I would believe they probably are. But yeah, really cool stuff. Really liked that a lot. And this disease was engineered. We already got into that, and One of the guys who's in his rage, he's gotten infected, and this guy comes up and he bites his nose off, and then he attacks the guy and bites his throat out, and then the guy's just laying there dying, and his nose is missing and his throat is missing and it's bleeding out, and that practical work is amazing. The nose off of his face, that looked legit. That had to be CGI enhancements maybe, or just a dummy head or what, I don't know, but it looked so damn good. Holy crap, good on them for that. So even though there isn't a ton of gore in the film, it's not like a splatterhouse, it's not a dead alive brain dead or something crazy. When it is on screen, besides that one discrepancy I have with the CGI, the practicals are fantastic. So I'll have to look up who did the practicals on this. And oh man, they catch this doctor, and they're kind of having a Hans Landa discussion, kind of like at the beginning of Inglourious Basterds when he's going back and forth with that dude who's hiding the Jews below in his basement. And then he's like, I thought you were going to torture me. And he's like, I am. And he grabs it. And then they come back, and the guy's fucking eye has been ripped out of his face, and he's dead. It's gnarly, man. Another great effect there. But the banter between them, their back and forth, all that stuff, I thought was really well delivered. I didn't really have any issues with anybody's acting in this. The girl that he meets seems a little old for what is going on, but hey, this is World War I. This is a time of desperation and all this. She's probably just living at home with her dad because, you know, she's scared, and maybe there's just, you know, lots of different reasons, but she's like at least in her mid-30s. But I don't know, the way they were playing the story, it seemed like she was 18, 17, something really young where she needed to get her father's approval, and she was like hiding him in her bedroom. But then they kept getting like close-ups of her, and she's a beautiful girl. She's just obviously older. She has a lot of wrinkles on her face. She's at least in her 30s, somewhere in there, which is a bad thing. I'm not downplaying her. It's just the character seemed like she was supposed to be 16, 18 something, the way it was done. But hey, I don't know. Let's see. And so this guy, the main guy here, and this German end up kind of befriending one another down there in the mess of it all, which always takes me back to my point of like, you know, you convince young kids to go fight in wars, and they don't really know what they're fighting for. I mean, that's the whole reason they go after kids. Because my dad's always said, you know, when I was younger, he's like, if they had a draft again, like, I would want to go over you, and most fathers would. But and I was like, yeah, but they would never let that happen because you can't brainwash people that are older. Like, they just won't listen to that shit. You know, because he was like, oh, we'd have better survival skills. We know how to survive. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know how to listen. You guys are already like free thinkers at this point. That's not what they want, you know? And so, yeah, it's always like that. You go in there, and if these people actually met and sat down and talked, they'd realize they didn't have any beef, really. I mean, unless, it depends, of course. But for the most part, it's just people who have been told something on one side. Like, you know, fucking history is always written by the victor, right? So everyone always looks like the bad guy on the other side of things. But yeah, I just like to see them kind of interact, and then they get their little plan, and when it goes all wrong, this guy comes out and clubs the guy's leg, and it just snaps so bad. And then they rig the charges, and the guy's just like, you know what I have to do, like, don't even. And so they let him go, and the guy's like, all right, and he runs out. And this is when he runs into the main dude, and they kind of he runs into this big, huge dude with bulging eyes, like a freaking toe cutter from Mad Max when he runs into the semi head on, and his eyes pop out of his head. That's such an amazing scene. He fucks that guy up. It was a great fight scene right there. And then he runs into the main guy, and they fight. And then he takes the vial and he falls on it, and boom, it goes right into his eye, like the infection, that disease that they had bioengineered goes right into his eye cavity, and the whole thing blows up. And the guy digs himself out yet again, and he goes and he has this little moment where he thinks of his girlfriend. It's kind of a happy ending in a way, and boom, like he walks away. So cool movie. I really enjoyed it. So if you guys haven't seen it, I'd check it out.